Hey, I'm Jade, and this is Backline Beat's Turn It Up Tuesday. This week's album being ACDC's Back in Black. Now let's get into it. On July 21st, 1980, the new era of ACDC began. But first, we have to go back to February 19th of that year, when singer Bon Scott died of acute alcohol poisoning after a night of binge drinking. Well, immediately after his death, the band considered disbanding. They were convinced to forge on, most notably by Bon Scott's father when they were at his funeral in Australia, which Angus has agreed that that's what Scott would have wanted as well. A week or so after his funeral, the band began writing again and also began the search for a new singer. They weren't looking for someone who could imitate Scott, but someone who could bring their own selves to the band, but would also fit within their sound. It was producer Mutt Lange that brought them the man that would become just as, if not more recognizable than Bon Scott himself as the frontman of ACDC, that man being Brian Johnson, who was a previously of the Geordies and at that time was actually working at a car repair shop and was considered washed up. He thought he had had his chance and that was it for him. He was the rock star. Life was no longer in his cards. But Lange was right in his assessment of who would be right for the band, with actually Bon Scott having raved about Johnson after seeing a Geordie show years earlier and kept on telling the band how good this guy was, and it wasn't something that he often did, was rave about someone. And more kind of alignment after Scott's death, a fan actually wrote a letter to the band's management and saying that they should check out Johnson and included a record of the Geordies for them to check out. So all signs were pointing to Johnson, of which they were actually all right, because he was an instant fit. They knew he was the man from the first audition, even though they fruitlessly continued to audition the rest of the applicants. But on March 29th, Johnson got the call, and by April 1st, it was official. ACDC had themselves a new singer. Before we move on, I'd love if you hit that subscribe button. Now let's get back into it. With songs written and their missing ingredient found, ACDC finished writing and began rehearsal. They were supposed to rehearse for 3 weeks, but that got cut short down to 1 when a studio in the Bahamas became available. Now, the band wanted to record the album in the UK, where they all lived, but there were no studios available at that time, so they had to jump on the chance and go record at Compass Point Studios. The studio was far from fancy, and it was a bit tumultuous recording there because the rolling storms would cause electrical problems in the studio, causing them to have to stop recording. But they were able to get through. The first song that they recorded set the tone, and it was the track that would become the title track, Back in Black. Malcolm Young had been toying with the riff for that song while they were on their Highway to Hell tour, and the song itself is about the man that they had just lost. Johnson's writing style fit in with everyone else. When he had thought he had gone too far with an innuendo with the lyrics, "She told me to come, but I was already there," in the song, "You shook me all night long," the band didn't seem to mind. Though there was still a bit of a learning curve and some challenges with his writing. In particular, he couldn't quite crack the lyrics to Hell's Bells. It actually took one of the passing storms to crack it and some advice from Lange and a bit of a pressure because they were actually set to record that the previous day that he found that inspiration and the storm came rolling in. The bell from Hell's Bells actually came into the song later when they were mixing at Electrical 80s Studios in New York. They tried to get a bell from an actual bell tower and record that, but every time the bell rang, the pigeons would fly off, ruining the recording, so they actually commissioned a bell to be made specifically for that song, and it happened to be perfectly in tune. The album's all-black cover design was in tribute to Bon Scott, though it wasn't embraced by everyone at Atlantic Records. But the band wouldn't judge. It was that way or no way. Though they did relent a little by adding gray outline to their name. That mostly all-black cover hit shelves, like I said, on July 21st, 1980. It was an instant success in the UK, topping the charts within 2 weeks, but it took some time across the pond in the US to grab a hold, though by October it hit platinum, and that started its run of 13 consecutive months in the top 10 on the Billboard charts. With that, the band became superstars, and this album is considered by some to be the one that saved rock and roll. The album kept growing and growing, and to this day, right now, it is the second best-selling album of all time, only behind Michael Jackson's Thriller, that came out 2 years later. There's no doubting the influence Back in Black had, and still continues to have to this day. So grab it off your shelf, or open your favorite music app, and turn up this week's album, ACDC's Back in Black. Thanks for making it this far, and if you liked the video, I'd love if you subscribed. Leave a comment on who you'd like me to check out, or maybe do one of these videos on. And check out backlinebeat.com for more music-related content, and if you're able to support the channel more and would like to, there's links on how you could do so in the description box below. Thanks, and have yourself a good one.